Welcome to the Deadology Podcast. From Pencil Hill Studio, New Paltz, New York, I'm your host, Howard Weiner. Today is the 12th episode of the Deadology Podcast, and we're going to begin a new series, Underrated Gems. So this is Underrated Gems Volume 1, and the concept here is to talk about some shows that have been overlooked, kind of underrated. As fans, we're always looking for new, great, awesome versions to discover, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to know these shows. But the reason I say I'm underrated, I took one common denominator for this series. When I look at a show, I go to Deadbase and I look at Taper's favorites. If anything's in the top 10 for that year as far as the show goes, that means it's probably not underrated. I look for shows that are more, that end up at the bottom, but are really happen to be good shows. Probably just a lot of people didn't have them at the time. The two shows I selected here are Providence, Rhode Island, April 21st, 1971. That's in the Rhode Island Auditorium. And the other show is a 1981 show, October 12th, from Olympia Hall in Munich. Let's jump into that 1971 show. Very interesting time for the Grateful Dead. Formative, completely. In 1970 and 1971, the Live Dead, their concerts really didn't have an identity like they had previously in 1969, or they would develop into in 1972. And the reason for this, there were a lot of great shows, but it wasn't like a constant identity to the shows. And the reason being, Robert Hunter. All his great songwriting and so many new songs had to go into the rotation that the Grateful Dead had to find a way to make them work in their live shows, as well as continuing their whatever songs they were keeping from 1969 in the rotation. And it was quite a task with the amount of material that came in. Just for starters, you got the new songs. In a 2-year period, Robert Hunter was Dylan-esque in his great output, legendary output. Just looking at the material that ended up on albums, you got Working Man's Dead, you got the songs from American Beauty, you got the new songs, which February 71, they broke out in Portchester, which ended up on Skull and Roses. The Bertha Loser, Loser wasn't on that album, but the Bertha War Frat songs. And then you had October 19th, 71, they broke out some of the originals that would be on Europe 72, the Jack Straws, Ramble on Rose, etc. And also the first Garcia solo album, has a bunch of songs from this era, which Hunter introduced. Also Comes a Time, which ended up on Reflections, and a couple of songs on Bob Weir's solo album, Ace. So in a 2-year period, the Grateful Dead had this plethora of new compositions to work into their act. And so during those years, there were many great shows, but the flow of the shows was always kind of evolving, or a work in progress. So April 21st, 1971, they're in Providence, Rhode Island. And I'd say there's shows from this era that are definitely more revered. The great Fillmore Run from April 71. And you got the Manhattan Center shows from earlier in the month. A lot of that material ended up on Skull and Roses. You got the Portchester shows with the Beautiful Jam from February, where they broke out all those new tunes that would end up on Skull and Roses. So the Providence show kind of gets lost in this era. There were a lot of, before they came to Providence, they played a bunch of college shows. So interesting time. And probably from my standpoint, I don't love this era as much as I do later in the year, or a lot of the 1970s stuff. But, it's definitely a point where they're evolving into a different sound for the band. So Providence, Rhode Island, a hotbed for Grateful Dead shows. They would play 20 there over the years. 19 of them would come in the Providence Civic Center, which was the venue that replaced where they played on April 21st, the Rhode Island Auditorium. The Rhode Island Auditorium was pretty much a hockey rink. Rocky Marciano fought a bunch of fights there before he became heavyweight champion. And there were, it doesn't have a big concert history, but some great bands did play there, including The Who and the Rolling Stones earlier in their career. So the Rhode Island Auditorium was officially torn down in 1989, but it was pretty much put out of business by the Providence Civic Center. So on April 21st, they open up with Casey Jones. And wow, what an awesome version this is. These early versions of Casey Jones just have a power and a drive and a confidence that the Dead are playing them with, because they are totally excited about the song. I think when you're a band like the Dead and you play Casey Jones almost every night for a 3 or 4 year period, begins to lose a little bit of the gripping power. But on this night, they were all into it. Everything's sounding great. By the way, throughout the show, Phil Lesh's bass is awesome. It's up in the mix on this, very clean sounding. So if you love your Phil Lesh bass, this is a great recording to listen to. And during KC, Jerry's like totally into it, man. He's howling and hooting, trouble ahead, woo, doing stuff like that. So very, very cool opener. I like Casey Jones in the opening spot as opposed to an encore or ending the first set, which it did a lot. And then we move on. We're going to do some country and some blues. Bob does Mama Tried, a Merle Haggard tune. And then they seamlessly shift into the blues. Big Boss Man, Pigpen. And then it's right back to the new songs. You got a great version of Loser. I really like Jerry singing on this version. You can really tell he's coming of age as a vocalist. These 71 early versions of Loser are very powerful. And then the Dead move on to fill up the middle of this awesome first set with a truckin', drums, other one, Wharf Rat. So let's start with Truckin', the new tune off American Beauty. It's still kind of rounding into shape. They don't have the resounding final instrumental that it would develop into later in the year and by 1972. As we all know, this should be a famous slogan, everything's better in 72, which is a cool thing because as a band, you want everything to keep getting better. So Truckin' would definitely be a more formidable song. Europe 72, moving forward, all those amazing versions. Like a Truck and Drums, other one here in Providence is 18 minutes long. If you go to Europe 72, a Truck and Drums, other one is a good 45 minutes at a minimum. So, yeah, you can see the difference of how it developed over time. So the drums, nice drum solo there, and then they break into the other one. And it's a pretty cool version. Once again, the versions from this era are not as great as 69 or 72. You know, in 69, you got that psychedelic whirlwind, the tight cyclone, and it's sandwiched in cryptical envelopments. So now they for the most part, they stopped playing cryptical envelopments. They did it once in a while, but other one is kind of finding its way on its own, which it would do, but in some of these 71 versions is not as long, and they're kind of searching for the feel. Now, the cool thing about this other one, Phil's playing incredible bass. The first solo leading into the lyrics is very hot. Jerry does some nice stuff, but this is one of the coolest Phil jams you'll ever hear. You just hear his bass lead so nicely, and it's almost like the band stepped back and let him kind of lead the way on this one. And after the first verse, it gets into like a nice little trippy thing, almost moving into like that territory where they would go in Europe 72, but not quite. So it's a satisfying version. It's pretty typical for the year. And then Wharf Rat. And man, these early versions of Wharf Rat are just so moving, man. Who doesn't love that Skull and Roses version, which was recorded a couple weeks earlier? This is cut from the same cloth as that one. Excellent Wharf Rat, excellent singing. Just a little bit. It's still obviously a ballad, a slow ballad, but a little quicker pace than it would become over the years. So very cool to hear these April 71 Wharf Rats. A great period for that tune. So you get like a nice chunk of what would be a second set stuck right in the middle of this first set. Oh, and coming up, the next song is the centerpiece of this whole show. It's mind-boggling. My favorite Pigpen song, Hard to Handle. And a few years I wouldn't say a few years ago, maybe 20, all the years roll into one, probably 20, 30 years ago, my friend Doug discovered this tape. He's got like, you got to hear this Hard to Handle. It is the best. And no doubt for me, it's beat every other version. I like it better than the Fillmore East versions, which are great on the 28th and 29th. You got that, the one from the Phil Zone from Hollywood Palladium. I believe that's August 6th. There's a real hot one, July 2nd, 71 from the Fillmore West. But this one for me easily beats it because of the amazing instrumental jam. And Hard to Handle is interesting how that song developed. It was always enjoyable, 69, 70, they're playing it, good versions, no complaints. But in 71, they really found the stride. It was, whatever it was. And this isn't Pigpen sang it great the whole time, but the band finally found a way to really put the song across with a powerful, ending crescendo. And it definitely became my favorite Pigpen song. And they stopped playing it. The last version they did was in the Bronx on August 26, 71. And when Pigpen rejoined the band and later in 71 and for Europe 72, they just never brought Hard to Handle back. And it's a shame because I would have loved to hear a 72 version of Hard to Handle. I could only dream of what Garcia would have done with that. But this version, Pigpen singing, is very strong. He has the nice contained rap on it. And man, they get down to business. And they're cooking, and you can just tell there's like a truculent vibe to it as they break into the instrumental and everything is going smooth. And then it kind of swirls around a little, and they bring it down to a vortex. They get to a point where you just know that they're going to blow the top off on this thing. From the 6-minute mark in the instrumental, it's as if they loaded an atomic pinball and just launched it. And instead of my words trying to describe it, let's listen to this amazing jam, which I think is the hottest Hard to Handle. Unbelievable. Too Hot to Handle. A series of rolling crescendos that go where no handle has gone before. Really incredible. Kung Pao effing hot. All right, awesome Hard to Handle. And then on the heels of that, they play like great selection here. That's one of the things that makes this first set so powerful. They bounce into Cumberland Blues, and it just sounds so awesome after that handle. It's like such fire as they rip into it. Really great version. And once again, Phil's bass is just unbelievable on this. So it's a real bouncing, upbeat Cumberland. Probably one of the better ones from this time period. I think they really started kicking it up a notch in 72, but a very, very strong Cumberland Blues. And then we move into the Janis Joplin tribute portion of this set. Bird Song, new song that had just been broken out at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester a couple months earlier. And it's a trippy, I like the trippy sound of these early Bird songs, although I think it would develop into much more powerful in the upcoming year. Very good version. And then on the heels of Bird song, they end the set with an excellent version of Bobby McGee, Me and Bobby McGee, a little Chris Christopherson. And, this is what made the Grateful Dead so amazing, especially in this period. If you just look, you got all the great new Hunter tunes here, which are classics, but look at their taste, their selection, their choice. Merle Haggard's song, Otis Redding, Hard to Handle, Jimmy Reed, Big Boss Man, and then Chris Christopherson, Me and Bobby McGee. And they made all these songs their own and fitted into exactly what they were doing, the magic of the Grateful Dead. And I'm not going to spend as much time on set 2 of this show. It's a very good set, but they were when the band when they finished the first set, we mentioned we're going to be right back. 5 minutes, short break, and Jerry said, "Yeah, don't go nowhere, short break." So they probably were up against a little time constraint for this. Providence set 2, short, simple, sweet, lovable, and danceable. We got Bertha to kick things off, Sugar Magnolia. Both songs are once again in the early stages. Everything's better in 72, so Sugar Mag especially would take off, but these are very good versions. The band's on fire in Providence. Then we got Good Lovin', nice Pigpen rap, probably the most jammed out song of the second set. The second set is pretty straightforward, nothing too far out. So a nice Good Lovin' from Pigpen. And then the set wraps up quickly with Not Fade Away, Going Down the Road, Not Fade Away, the song which just came into Providence, a combination, Providence, this combination just came into prominence in 1971, the great Skull and Roses version. This one it definitely has a feel like that one. So a beautiful little set there. And then the encore is great. Probably the most impressive part of this, or really got me when I was listening to it again. Uncle John's at the Johnny Be Good just rocked out as hard as possible. So, the Grateful Dead definitely had their rocking shoes on in 1971. So April 21, 71, Providence, a show you got to check out, definitely worthwhile. And hopefully it doesn't stay underrated because it's a damn good show. It's my favorite from April of 71. Now let's time travel ahead 10 years to Munich, Germany. The Grateful Dead are back in Europe. They played there a couple shows, 71, the big Europe 72 tour, a small tour in 74. In 1981, they did a few shows in Germany and England early in the year, and then they came back a second time for this longer swing, a really good run. And this Olympia Hall show ends up kind of right in the middle of the Europe 81 tour, October 12th. And it gets off to a great start with Jack Straw, a very well played Jack Straw. And it goes into Candyman, just a beautiful, I love that combination. A sweet Candyman, Jerry singing fine, and the show's off and kicking. And I think the theme, I'm not saying they got together and had a little theme meeting before the show, but there's definitely flashbacks to Europe 72 because we got 5 songs in this amazing 12-song first set from Europe 72. You got The Straw, the 4th song of the set, Cumberland Blues. This one has a little bit of a rush-through feel, like very well played. Of course, you see Cumberland, you're very happy, but not a very long or jammed-out version. 2 years from the date of this Cumberland in Madison Square Garden, if you want to hear a jammed-out Cumberland, October 12th, 83, Madison Square Garden, incredible, probably the best one, unless you want to I'll put it on par with the great one, which is on Europe 72 from London. That's April 8th, 72, the great Europe 72 version. We got a Rooster in the 3rd spot. There's a Beat It Down the Line, Ramble on Rose, the 3rd song from Europe 72. Very Jerry Singing's on, just a great version. Set rolls along. They got a real nice Althea. Althea kind of changes the pace of the set a little bit. Everything was kind of speeding out of control. The band's playing great, but it's very quick, almost 82 like, kind of the style they would dig into the following year. And then Passenger, what a smoking version this is. The great Phil song, Bobby singing. I have no idea why they stopped playing this one. Great tune, man. I think it was 82 or 83 was like the last version of Passenger. Seems like an easy enough song to pull off, Not like Lazy Lightning Supplication one, which was a little complicated. I really wish they would have continued to play Passenger, but you get a great version here. And Passenger is the perfect warm-up. Jerry gets his fingers all nice and limber for what's to be an outstanding China Cat rider to end the set. I think this is the best Cat rider to end the first set. Generally they took a little more time with it when it's starting a set two, but this version's really nice. They come out of the gate quick with the jam, go to the crescendo part, and it doesn't seem like they can rebuild it and extend it, but they do. Jerry was in the mood to play around with it, and awesome version here. This one, by the way, is up on my Positively Garcia page, on my Positively Garcia YouTube page, this Cat Rider, as well as the Hard to Handle from the Providence show. If you don't want to pull out the whole shows and listen to them, I got the individual great versions of those performances. And the Rider's killer is always 1980 through like 85. I think you just get the hottest riders where the band's just hitting it full stride every single time. So a great Cat Rider to end the set in Olympia Hall, and then things get stranger in set two. Second set. One of the reasons I think this show is a little maybe overlooked from that period, I think this whole Europe 81 tour is underrated. There's a lot of great shows, and I think this one kind of got lost in the middle of all that. You got especially towards the end of the tour, you got the Amsterdam show, which is an all-time classic, where they come out with the acoustic with rented equipment. It's Bob Weir's birthday in the second set with the rented equipment, which gives it a completely different sound. They do Playing in the Band, Holy Goalie, Gloria, the first Love Light since Pigs Passing. So that's such a standout show. And then they played in Paris the following night. The Hippodrome, I think, was the name of the place. Great show with a Morning Dew, a second set Birdsong, I believe. And the final show in Barcelona is another classic. The only time Jerry played in the home of his ancestors on October 19th. So I think, it's one of the reasons this show gets overlooked. It's stuck right in the middle of the Europe 81 tour, but you had that first set with the 5 Europe 72 songs. And the up-tempo playing continues in set 2. They open up with Bertha, and Garcia just hit some silly licks on this. It's comical, the kind of guitar licks that make you laugh out loud. And they're romping and rolling. They go into Samson and Delilah, release some more mass energy in that tune. And then you have to give a couple breaks in the momentum. It was out of control how upbeat this show is. Garcia was able. It was amazing how he could just take it down and switch the tempo. So they do a Ship of Fools, really nice, pretty, well sung, and then it's off to the races again. They go into Estimated Profit, very cool version. The jam, it's at times it sounds like it's going in eyes. At times it sounds like they're looking for another song. You're not quite sure what's going on with it, but it's a very interesting outro jam. And then they pull a shocker. It was done in Buffalo a couple weeks earlier. They go Estimated into Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, and so this Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, there's no version like it. It's just feeding off the energy this night. There's 4 guitar solos. I think I've heard 1 or 2 where they've done 3. When I heard this, it's an outlier version. It just stuck out so much. There's 4 solos there, and some of them are just so quick, and the band is just firing. It's crazy. They can hardly settle into it. They was like off to the races with all the energy in the world in these 4 jams, and 2 of them are pretty long. Like the second solo here is just like as quick as the band could play, and then so they do the final chorus of Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, and they throw in 1 extra jam for the road, man, for the Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, and let's take a listen to that right now.
Going down the road, feeling bad. Going down the road, feeling bad. Going wanna be treated in some way.
That's the type of night it was in Munich, Germany on October 12th. In the fast lane, full throttle. What a going down the road, feeling bad. By the way, that's the second and last time that they did the estimated going down the road, feeling bad combo. And once again, going back to that dead bass and what the people who were polled, their opinions on best shows and best versions. Neither the Hard to Handle nor the Going Down the Road Feeling Bad were even mentioned in best ever versions. I would put them as my favorites. But the Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, it's really a matter of taste. There's so many great versions, and they especially seem to play that song with a certain fire when they were in Europe. They did it in Europe 72, and they did it again in 81 at this show. And also the Amsterdam show has a Smokin' Going Down the Road Feeling Bad. The Amsterdam show from October 16th, 81 in the Milkweg. And moving forward, you got the estimated Going Down the Road. That's 5 songs, and Brent throws in Good Time Blues. Song I always kind of liked instrumentally. The lyrics never really hit the spot, but good version. The band's hammering the blues on this one. And then a common thing that happened well, not common, but it happened more often in 81 than other years. Before drums, they almost had to drag Jerry off stage. He just liked to stay up there and noodle and go into these little jams as he did here after good times. But eventually the drums take over. And by the way, if you want to hear a great pre-drum Jerry noodling from this tour, the Barcelona show. They do a Sailor Saint, one of the best saints you'll ever hear. Then after the saint, Garcia just goes off for like 6 minutes by himself. It's like a soliloquy. And that one's definitely worth checking out. So you got the little Jerry jam going into a drum solo. And coming out of space, they got Not Fade Away. The easy breezy kind of version from this time period where they kind of almost... not what the feeling of this. There were strange versions. They were really good because they were different. But coming out of space into not fade away, that easy breezy feeling, and some good jamming. Pretty long version, about 10 minutes long, and then it gives way to Stella Blue. And this Stella is a classic, man. Jerry's just singing with all the heart and soul he can. Excellent version of Stella, and this time period had great Stellas. The interesting thing about Stella was 78. They played some really hot jams on it. In the early days, here and there, they would hit some great outro solos. When Jerry and the band took the time to develop the outro solo on this, the song could approach Morning Dew as far as just being in its majesty. It's that great of a song. But more often than not, they cut it short, the outro solo, and really didn't do too much with it, a little moody thing, and then they'd belt into something else. But in late 81, they really dug into these Stella Blues. There's a great version from October 6th. Might beat this one by a little bit. And also Boulder, Colorado. December 9th. Crazy, man. You got to hear that Stella Blue. Insane. But yeah, so they, after a brilliantly sung version, very poignant. The band takes their time, whips around the Stella Jam for about 3-4 minutes. Kind of seems like they're in, but it comes back in a bigger cyclone, round and round. Jerry and the band just working it over, and then it goes into what it almost seems like a natural fit. Stella going into a round and round. And then show closes out, around and round, good lovin', good versions, good little kiddie cookout. That's what we used to call, the around and round, good lovin's, or, the throwing stones, not fade away, kiddie cookouts. Yeah, but it must have got the crowd very happy, around and round, good lovin', and then U.S. Blues to close it out. But overall, a very, very hot show. So anytime you could get a show where you got like all-time great versions of Cat Rider and Going Down the Road, and even that Stella, I'd definitely be in my top 10 Stellas. That's what makes the show stand out for me. Besides, overall, there's good song selection, some surprises in there. Same thing with the Providence, the very, very hot first set, great versions, they're hard to handle. So these are two shows, if you hadn't heard them, definitely worth digging out. And there it is, Underrated Gems, Volume 1. I figure I'll do this type series every 5-6 weeks, see if I can find a couple shows that are probably not as well heralded as great shows. And because I think as fans, we're always looking to find something great that we never heard before. And the beautiful thing about the Grateful Dead archive, there's so much we'll never get to all of it. So I think this is worthwhile. It was recommended by some of my listeners to do this. So I think it's a cool theme for the show. And that's episode 12. I'm your host, Howard Weiner. Thanks for listening. My website, tangledupintunes.com. Obviously, you can follow the Deadology podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you download your podcasts. Next week is Halloween. I think you know what that means. Tricks, treats, and scary stuff. Grateful Dead had an amazing long history of playing shows on Halloween. That awesome one, 1971 Dick's Picks Volume 2. We'll talk about that. And other great highlights from October 31st in Deadology. Until then, have fun, go see live music, stay safe, peace out.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes, so everybody hang loose.